Welcome back to the Future Quake Show. I am Dr. Future.
And I am Tom Bionic.
And it's good to be back again on Friday.
Wowzer. I'm ready to go.
Is that all you have to say?
Well, I've got... That's a loaded question.
Just wowzer?
I couldn't think of anything else to say for maybe the first time in Future Quake history.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank you right now. Thank you so much for the privilege and the honor of coming into your radios or your computers to be able to do this show every week. And it's just the greatest listeners in the world listen to us, and I just want to thank you right now for it. God is doing neat things.
Yeah.
Through our listeners and to the people that we meet on our show, and I think Joe Jordan, who was on this week, was no exception.
You know what? As I said just a minute ago before you hit the play button, for me personally, I think it really filled in a lot of spiritual. Like I had said to Joe, you know, God tends to give me one end of the spectrum and the other end of the spectrum in a theological sort of continuum, and then sort of fills in the middle. And I think a lot of what Joe Jordan said was a lot of filling in of the middle for me personally. And, you know, now that I think about it, probably for a lot of the show, you know, with both Tom Horn and, you know, with Joe talking about the spiritual doorways, you know, you know, we've had a lot of other people on, like Chris Pinto, talking about some of those doorways, tangentially anyway. So I think he really fit well with the guests and with everything in Future Quake stands for.
I cannot wait to see the video that he did at Roswell at the UFO festival.
Me neither.
We need more brave Christian men like that.
Yeah.
There are brave Christian women. I know you and I have watched some stuff and some new productions that are coming out. We got pre-screen about one particularly brave lady I look forward to talking to, lady who's been almost like a Nazi hunter in the spiritual realms.
We're going to have to get her that uniform that guy used to wear with the funny hat and the top hat and the coat.
I have no idea what you're talking about. The guy on Monopoly?
Yeah, the guy on Monopoly.
Or Mr. Steed? Or
the Mr. Peanut.
Mr. Peanut, okay. Now I understand.
Yeah. No. The Nazi hunter guy, I can't remember his name.
Simon Wiesenthal?
That guy. He always wore that that hat.
I didn't know that.
Oh, all the pictures I've ever seen him in, he's got this kind of goofy looking hat on.
Yeah, I'm sure he appreciates you referring to it that way.
Well, you know, I'm not a Nazi, so he's not going to hunt me down.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so you thought Joe Jordan had some interesting. I hope he didn't freak out our listeners too much. But then again,
as an understatement. You know what was cool was his testimony about how he came to the Lord via studying this, what he now believes, and I would certainly concur, now believes is this very spiritual, dark spiritual phenomenon.
Right. And he just comes across as a very level-headed, no nonsense. He's not a real strange kind of guy.
No,
he's just dealing in a very, very special part of spiritual warfare.
He almost has like an air of kind of an engineer about him, almost, you might say.
Well, that would be a compliment.
It is. It is. He's very structured in what he says. It's not fantastic. It's very matter of fact. Very good. Yeah. Very good testimony.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Merv will tell you toward the end of the show about how you can give us some feedback. We'd like to know what you thought about Mr. Jordan or any of our guests that we have. And we're looking forward to hearing particularly about any suggestions you have for topics, that things that you think are really important that could impact the life of your family or other people you know, that we know to cover on our show. We've got some really cool guests coming up. I think we could share at least next week. Who's coming on?
Well, we're doing is next week the potpourri?
Yeah. Well, what do you call those Oriental restaurants where they come out the cart?
Dim sum.
Dim sum.
It's future dim sum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where if y'all are like me and you grew up here, we don't eat that phony stuff. A dim sum restaurant is an Oriental one where you take little small bits off the cart that goes by and it keeps coming by, right?
It's almost like having a meal full of appetizers.
Yeah, okay.
You know, that would be a way for somebody to think about it. You know, you get a little small serving of one thing, and then every time the cart comes by, you get something different, and you end up having 7 or 8 different things at the course of your meal.
Okay, so next week we're going to have Future Quake Dim Sum.
Yeah.
Okay. Probably a record in radio, probably, to have a dim sum themed show.
I don't know, but
a week.
with all this dim sum, talk, I'm thinking that maybe we should go have an ice cream.
You're getting hungry.
Yeah.
Well, can you tell them who all's going to be on the show next week?
I would love to. We're having the vice presidential candidate from the Constitution Party, as I recall. Right?
Darrell Castle.
Darrell Castle.
He's going to be joining us, and it's taken a lot of work to get somebody from their ticket on our show because they're campaigning around the country right now.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm looking forward to.
He's a favorite son out of Memphis, and he's going to be here joining us.
Cool.
Who else?
We're going to have the CAAA from the Anchor Fellowship. They're the Christian Actions Against Apathy group. And talking about some of the stuff that they're doing, and they have a documentary movie night out. It's going to be August the 30th at 7 p.m. I'll just give them a little plug.
At the Anchor?
At the Anchor Fellowship. I think that's 169 3rd Street.
Okay.
7 p.m.
Going to be showing some of the work of Chris Pinto.
Yeah,
who's been a guest on our show.
He's been a guest a few times, and we're going to have him on. They're going to have him there at the Anchor. And
so if you like that kind of stuff, like on Future Quake, it's a chance for everybody to meet together and meet kindred spirits.
Yeah. Well, and he's actually going to be there to both present the video and answer questions that people might have, because I'm sure there'll probably be a lot of them.
Will there be any other prestigious people that'll be there too?
Me and you.
Okay, good. You saw where I was going with that. Yeah.
You're coming, right?
So you bet your fern.
Yeah.
The Future Quake staff will be there.
Yes.
The dynamic duo.
We might have to see if Merv
Future
can
and
show
Tom
up.
Bionic. Oh yeah, we need to twist Merv's arm.
Yeah.
To be on there. But anyway, join us down there. We'll hear more about it next week. And then also we're going to have a very special show about a visit that you had. Do you want to tell them or do you want them to wait?
I don't know. I wish we had a coin to flip or something, or some lots to cast.
Okay,
I guess that would be the biblical way to do it.
It's a very mysterious show about an enigmatic place.
Yes.
That you were
I'll
at.
just tell him. We'll just tell him. A couple weeks ago, I wound up being at about 10 feet in front of the main gate of the Bohemian Grove, actually. And for those of you that don't know the Bohemian Grove, I encourage you to go to YouTube and type in Bohemian Grove Exposed and watch some of the videos.
Yeah.
It'll blow your mind.
Yeah, it's just a Future Quake kind of place to be hanging out. Except we're not invited into Bohemian Grove.
Yeah, and we're being good, believers of the Bible. We don't go and
that wouldn't be allowed there
giant
either.
Owls and stuff.
That's true.
Yes.
But if you want to hear more about it, we're going to talk about it on a special show next week. So you're just getting a grab bag. And then we'll still have tomorrow's Tremors or today's review of the Futures News. So it'll be a great week. And then the week after that, we have an incredible guest that our listeners have been asking for years. Someone who is extremely difficult to get, but somebody who everyone will love.
Are his initials CM?
I don't want to give it away.
Ooh, okay.
I don't want to give it away.
Because I was going to, if they were, then I was going to give...
and we already have some other big people even lined up after him.
Wow.
I just gave it away.
It's funny how we were talking a couple weeks ago. We were thinking, you were saying, boy, I'm just having, not a lot of people have called back. And
so
now it's
interesting.
just like...
I was, for some reason, catching everybody bad time, and then it was like within 5 minutes, some of these big name people just started responding, and so we're going to have a very exciting end of August and September on Future Quake show.
I'm looking forward.
We probably need to get on to some news.
I was going to say, why don't you hit us with a news story there?
Okay. I've got several stories. They're brief. This one's probably the longest one.
All right.
That have a common theme of what's in the news right now. And, of course, by the time this airs, it may be out of the news, or we may be in World War III, one of the two.
Oh, great.
But as of the moment of this recording, it's a big news, and it's regarding the war, skirmish, whatever you want to call it, in Georgia. So Georgia's on my mind for our show today with Russia's incursion. And this is a story that you won't hear on the mainstream news, but it is a real story that's for real. Now, this came from a source called Debka, which I have to admit is something that comes out of Israel. I think it has a strong influence of the Israeli Defense Force, which actually makes it all the more incredible because it's something that exposes some activities that they have going on there. Related to the nation of Israel. So I take it actually with more credibility in what they're saying. It's not necessarily trying to make someone look bad, but it's just saying matter-of-factly what they're up to. Basically, it relates to the title, Israel backs Georgia in Caspian oil pipeline battle with Russia. Let me repeat that again. Israel backs Georgia in Caspian oil pipeline battle with Russia. Georgian tanks and infantry, aided by Israeli military advisors, captured the capital of breakaway South Ossetia early Friday, August 8th, bringing the Georgian-Russian conflict over the province to a military climax. Now, this was written just a day or so before Russians came in hard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin threatened a military response, which, in fact, we know he followed up on.
Yep.
Former
didn't mince words for a change.
Former Soviet Georgia called up its military reserves after Russian warplanes bombed its new positions in the renegade province. And Moscow's first response to the fall of the town of Shinvali, President Dmitry Medvedev of Russia ordered the Russian army to prepare for a national emergency after calling the UN Security Council into emergency session. Reinforcements were rushed to the Russian peacekeeping force present in the region to support the separatists. Now it's not Russian, Georgian tanks entered the capital after heavy overnight aerial strikes in which dozens of people were killed. Georgia's prime minister said on Friday that Georgia will continue its military operation in South Ossetia until a durable peace is reached. As soon as a durable peace takes hold, we need to move forward with dialogue and peaceful negotiations. Now, you have to understand that this place, South Ossetia, as I understand it, sort of like seceded or left Georgia way back in 1993, I believe. Mm-hmm. And so they've sort of been in like semi-autonomous already. Mm-hmm. They're like 90% Russian. Mm-hmm. So they're sort of their own place. And then all of a sudden, the Georgian country, the army just attacked it and decided to hit it and just did a major military operation. So the Russian action was really in response to a provocation by the Georgian army.
And that's been reported in not just Debka, a bunch of other places have reported that.
Well, now here's what Debka adds is what was going on behind the scenes. Yeah. It says Debka's geopolitical experts note that on the surface level, the Russians are backing the separatists of South Ossetia and neighboring Abkhazia as payback for the strengthening of American influence in tiny Georgia and its 4.5 million inhabitants. However, more immediately, the conflict has been sparked by the race for control over the pipelines carrying oil and gas out of the Caspian region. Now, just in the last couple of days, since this article came out, they have mentioned that there's been bombing around oil pipelines, but it wasn't revealed originally who was involved. And it says the Russians may just bear with the pro-U.S. Georgian president Saakashvili's ambition to bring his country into NATO, but they draw a heavy line against his plans and those of Western oil companies, including Israeli firms, to route the oil routes of Azerbaijan and the gas lines from Turkmenistan, which transit Georgia, through Turkey instead of hooking them up to Russian pipelines, which I guess was originally planned. So they're redirecting the pipelines away from Russia. Saakashvili need only back away from this plan for Moscow to ditch the two provinces' revolt. As long as he sticks to his guns, South Ossetia and Abkhazia will wage separatist wars. Now, Debka discloses Israel's interest in the conflict from its exclusive military sources. Jerusalem owns a strong interest in now remember, this is a pro-Israeli website. Jerusalem owns a strong interest in Caspian oil and gas pipelines, which reach the Turkish terminal port of Ceyhan rather than the Russian network. Intense negotiations are afoot between Israel, Turkey, Georgia, Turkmenistan, and Azerbaijan for pipelines to reach Turkey and thence to Israel's oil terminal at Ashkelon and onto its Red Sea port of Eilat. From there, supertankers can carry the gas and oil to the Far East and the Indian Ocean. Aware of Moscow's sensitivity on the oil question, Israel offered Russia a stake in the project but was rejected. Now, continues on here. Israel helped last year the Georgian president commissioned from private Israeli security firms several hundred military advisors, estimated at up to 1,000, these are from Israel, to train the Georgian armed forces in commando, air, sea, armored, and artillery combat tactics. They also offer instruction on military intelligence and security for the regime. Tbilisi, their capital, also purchased weapons, intelligence, and electronic warfare systems from Israel. These advisors were undoubtedly deeply involved in the Georgian army's preparations to conquer the South Ossetian capital. In recent weeks, Moscow has repeatedly demanded that Jerusalem halt its military assistance to Georgia, finally threatening a crisis in bilateral relations. Israel responded by saying that the only assistance rendered Tbilisi as defensive, even though they had an aggressive offensive act. This has not gone well in the Kremlin. Therefore, as the military crisis intensifies in South Ossetia, Moscow may be expected to punish Israel for its intervention.